Hello, everybody. I'm Avian, and we are doing our Stardew Valley How to Make a Mod series. This episode, we're going to go ahead and make a map. So I'm going to be using tiled. Last episode, I went over all the basics of tiled, some of the things you'll need to know, but we'll go over them again as we actively use them in our map making thing. So to start out, the very first thing you want to do is make yourself a sketch. I don't know if you can see it. I've made myself a little sketch on a sticky note just so you have a basic plan of what you think you might want. It's important to remember that when you're making a Stardew Valley map in tiled, everything is on a 16 by 16 grid. So each of your tiles is 16 by 16 pixels. You can make your own tile sheets. You can also use the existing Stardew Valley mod ones. If you open up your downloaded Stardew Valley file, you're going to go to the maps folder, and all of the original map sheets are going to be in that folder. I highly recommend when you're making your maps that you build in that folder because the way Stardew Valley is coded, it's looking for everything to be on the same level as your tiled map. So it's easiest to build your map in the original Stardew Valley map folder that you downloaded. Not your game file, but I recommend downloading a separate or making a copy of the map folder separately to work in for your mod. And that way everything is just nicely there together. And then once your map is completed, you can move it as you need to. But for the actual building, to prevent links breaking and everything, we build in the same folder. There's a couple workarounds, but that is the best way I know how to do it. So now we're going to go over to tiled. All right, especially since I can physically zoom in on the tiled sheet. So what I am building is a new location for my garden cottage mod that you can get to, and it has some different festivals and stuff. So the map we're going to be making today is going to be the inside of this trailer here. And that means once we get to adding map properties and everything, you will get to see how we do warps and things. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to File, New Map, New Project, builds the whole different world, project folder, everything. So since I want to work in my existing project, we're doing New Map. I just want to leave everything alone. I'm going to leave it at 30 by 20 to start with. If I need to expand it later, I can. I do not do the infinite mode because there is a noticeable difference in the way the game performs if you let your maps get too big. So it's better to start small, especially since I'm just doing a house. And then we want 16 by 16, which is already set. So I'm going to click OK. It's going to make me a new map right here. So the next thing we need to do is we need to import our style sheets. So I go over to my tile sheet box right here. And then down on this paper with the gold star, click New. We have an existing tile sheet, so we don't need to base it on an image. So you go to Browse. I have all of my tile sheets in a folder together. I'm going to click the interior, down interior, click OK. Make sure that says 16 by 16. And now it's going to be over here. I'm going to upload one more. And then if I find out that I need something I don't have in here, I can always add it. I gotta find it. So I made a tile sheet for the interior of my garden cottage mods. I put it in here. Here it is. And that way, your town interior and my cottage interior map are going to be on the same level as the map I'm making, which is how the Stardew Valley game looks for them. Otherwise, you're going to get errors and it's not going to load the map. So you want to make sure everything's on the same level. The other thing you want to do is on any tile sheet you make yourself, we want to be sure that it loads after the tile sheets for the original game. In this case, they load alphabetically, so I need to edit this. So I'm going to go to this little wrench over the paper. We're going to go to tileset properties, and up here on name, I am just going to go and I'm going to add a Z and an underscore right there. Click out of the box, hit save. Oh, it's asking me to save the map itself. That's what it's doing. So we're going to do that over on this side. So we're going to go to File, Save. I'm going to name this MP for Maple Park, which is the location. Trailer. Save. Okay, so now on this side, if I adjust anything, say I put a space and take it out, and it asks you to save. So now when I save, it'll just save and not ask questions. So now we have our town interior and our cottage interior set up for the tile sheets. The next thing is very important. Stardew Valley is coded to recognize certain layer styles, and each layer style is hard-coded into the game as to where it's located, whether a NPC or player can walk through items, if that layer is physically on top of another layer, and so on. So we need 5 layers here, and then they need to be named very specific things. Your very first one is going to be labeled back. This is where all your floor tiles are going to be. So if you're outside, it's going to be your grass, your dirt, your water. If you're inside, it's going to be like your kitchen tiles or your wood flooring. The next tile layer is going to be labeled buildings. So that's going to be anything your character cannot walk through. So countertops, walls, cliff faces, things like that. Your third layer will be named paths, I need to load in my paths tile sheet. Quick, paths, open. So paths is this tile sheet. So this is things that are hard-coded in that are keyed to these specific tiles. So in this case for interior, what I really want is this little light. Let me zoom that up so you can see it. We're going to put it at about 400. Is this little light bulb, because that is automatically going to put a light where we put that light bulb. If you're outside, if you put one of these tiles down, one of these trees will grow there. Maple, oak, or pine, palm. Weeds spawn from there. The big logs that you can chop down. Your bushes that you can forage from. This right here marks a default cabin spawn point. This is golden coconuts. You have your grass. This one is the little skull enemies that fly around at you. So I do need my paths in there because I want to be able to put the lights in without hard coding. Which you can hard code, and I will show you how to code in a light. Not hard code. I want to be able to put the lights in without using the tile sheet data and having to code it in the long way. But I will show you, especially on window lights and stuff, if you want to know how to do it the long way, how to do that. So then our next tile layer is going to be labeled front. You notice I'm putting a capital letter on the beginning of all of these. And your very last one is going to be always front. So front are tiles that when your farmer is standing in front of, the tile appears behind the farmer. But if your farmer is standing behind them, then the tile will render above the farmer. So tree branches are a good example. Chair backs, the top cover of the bed are good examples of tiles you want in your front. And then always front are tiles that will always show on top of the player. So the tops of walls, the very tippy top of trees, things like that. Our next layer that we're going to want to do, we're going to go on to new layer, and we're going to choose an object layer, and we're going to name this one buildings. You can make an object layer for all of your layers. I think the only one I'm going to need here is buildings, and that will allow us to attach strings to our map, warps, things like that. If I find a tile sheet that I want that requires a back object layer or a front objects layer, you just add it in and name it appropriately. You can hide your layers with the little eyeball. You can lock your layers with the little lock. Those are good things to know. The next thing is to actually start building the map. Now that I have my layers in, I'm just going to hit save. So we are going to go to Town Interior. I'm going to make that small enough that I can find my tiles without scrolling forever. I usually keep it about 100, 150. The tiles I want for this, yes, put my cursor there, and just so you all can see what I'm doing, is I'm going to be using these tiles right here, and I'm going to go ahead and lay down the floor tiles, and I'm going to lock all the other layers just to make sure that absolutely everything for my floor tiles ends up on just the back layer. So I'm going to highlight that square of 4. I'm going to go up to my shape tool because I know my shape that I want my floor to be. Okay, so that's going to be about the length. And then I wanted, I think that's 2, so I want a little cubby here. And the thing with the floor, with the shape tool, is it will overwrite your, like a stamp tool, basically. It'll keep the pattern going. I had 4. I know I want 4, and I might adjust this later. We also know that starting right here, based on my sketch, going about to the midpoint of the kitchen, and then I need a spot for the door. So the next thing I tend to do is I'm going to lock that. And I will go back over these and make them fancier in a minute. I'm just getting the general shape of what I want in here. I'm going to go to my cottage interior here because I have already set up. Yeah. Look, sorry. I am just going to copy. Highlight, Control-C, Control-V. That gives me one more stamp spot. There we go. Because what I was looking at is the size of the bed. So for the bed frame, you want your foot to be on your buildings layer. And then your pillows to be on your buildings layer. And I am going to go ahead, go up to front for the headboard. Unlock that. And then going to put on the back is I'm going to put the top blanket there. Oh, it's locked. And then also on front is I'm going to take the top of this blue blanket and overlay it there. So as y'all can now see, is the NPCs can walk into their bed, but because this front bit is over the top and the white part is on the back layer, they can walk in right here, and they will be behind the blanket so that when they go to sleep, it looks like they're in bed. I'm going to set my kitchen up now. So we had on my little map, and I'm going to lock the front. I'm going to go back to the buildings. Put these all on buildings because I don't want the NPC to be able to walk through these. We don't want the farmer to be able to walk through them either. And then I had that there. Do I want drawers or do I want... That fits best in the corner. And then I had a bit of counter that was blank. There we go. So, oh, I see. I want this bit of counter to line up. There we go. I knew I had a bit of counter that lined up because I didn't want the cutting board on the counter. And now I want to make this sink, this little island here. So what I am going to do, see, I'm also thinking about where this floor slides in. So I need at least one space of floor. Okay, so we're going to put this on the front layer, this front of the sink here. Because that's going to stick up above the floor. So this whole thing, if I'm thinking about it as a trailer, this whole bit would be your slide out. And it could slide in into this space right here. And then I want the counter space to be on the buildings layer. The other cool thing you can do about tiled is you can go up to here to these little triangles, and that will flip so that you can see now that my counter here has a dark edge, and I can put that there. And then I can go back up to this counter here that I had, flip that as well. And that line that was right there is no longer there because we flipped our tiles around. So now it's a kitchen island with a sink, like you might see in some people's trailer homes. I'm still debating if I want that counter style now. We're going to keep the cupboard style. So now I know that that fits the way I was hoping to fit it. And because these are on the buildings layer, nobody is going to be able to walk off. The one thing I want to make sure I do is I want to make sure I get a buildings layer around the entire perimeter of this, of our house here. And actually, one good way to do that is I'm going to take this tile on our buildings layer. And now anything I place over the top on the black on the buildings layer will, it'll override our black tiles, but I will know for a fact that I have that border and that nobody's going to walk off into the void on accident on us. And those are on the buildings layer, so we will come all the way up here to finish our border. So now if I hide my buildings layer, you can see that it makes a void around everything. So now we know roughly the size of our map. So what you can go up here if you want to resize something, this seems like a good time, is you can go to width, and you can go to height. And then if you want to click and hold, you can move your map around until it fits in how you want it to fit. I'm going to reduce one more so it's about an even space all the way around. Click OK. So back onto our buildings layer. I have for myself marked a couple cupboards and a couch. So the couch isn't as big as I thought it was going to be. And you've noticed that's replaced the back there. So what I can do is I can take this, Control C, delete will cut that out. And if I can Control V, it becomes basically a giant stamp. And I want this couch there. Trying to decide if that looks funny like that. You know what? I'm going to leave it. It kind of gives it a sectional feel. And because I'm counting this space as slide ins, I've made sure that I have enough space for these. So these two can slide in here. These two can slide in here. Maybe I should move that down a little bit. Yeah. Control C. There. I feel like that's probably a bit more accurate. All right. So we've got that there. And now I can add walls. So I'm going to go back to my back layer, choose my walls. I've got to unlock it. And you see that goes in behind there. And now because we've put our black layer there, I'm going to need to put that on top of the buildings layer. Oh, it helps if I'm actually on the buildings layer. Like that. And I'm going to make sure that that covers the buildings layer there. Okay. And then on our back, we can go back to our town interior. Choose our little go. There we go. And now that is, you can see that the floor goes. Oops. All the way under. So on this case, this wall is going to need to be on the buildings layer. Actually, I'll show you a new thing because I don't want that couch arm to be in front because I want people to be able to sit there. So what I will do and what you can do is you can make a layer. You can name it back 2. And what this will do is it'll look at the back part first and say, okay, that's a back layer. And then it will layer that over the top of the base back. So as long as you have just a regular back buildings front, always front, you can do back 2 buildings 2, front 2, always front 2. I try not to go too overboard with the number of layers I have, just because I don't want to accidentally break anything. And I don't necessarily know if there's a limit, so I'd rather err on the side of the caution. But I have done 1 or 2 of those, and it's worked out. So we will use a back 2 for this particular case right here. And now we want to put the border on our around our building. And I made a darker border in my little tile sheet because I wanted this specific color around the perimeter of this house. But if you go to town interior, this border exists up here in the standard colors. And oh, it was this. Here we are. Let's go on. And do I like that? No, I want the cupboards there. Okay. Now, when we get to the upper edge of the wall, that when you look at the original Stardew maps, they usually overlap the furniture just a little bit. That is these pieces that are blank on the top and then have a little bit of wall. And those go on your front layer or your always front layer. And you can see it overlaps furniture and will show up above them. And I want that for the corner. Then we go back down to the buildings for this edge of the wall here. And then I'm going to go back to front for going across there. There it is. And it was this one. And front comes that there. So then I wanted to put some cupboards in. I'm going to put that on back too because it's just the tiniest little bit and the farmer can walk in front of it. And that bit can go on buildings. And then the back be that little bit. And now there's a cupboard and a cupboard above it. And now we can go to front and go to town interior. And I'm going to find a cute plant or a globe or something. Oh, here we go. Now the trick here is finding something that sits about halfway between two frames. And I know there's a few things, but they may be in the town tile sheet too. Yeah, those are lifted. Okay, so what I now need to do is I need to import town sheet 2, town interior 2. Again, it's kept at the same level. Zoom that in just enough that I can see it without being lost in it. That's going to be hanging from something. Okay. Here we are. So like this teddy bear, that's half and half, can sit. I'm going to see if I find a plant that's a little bit. I don't want a 3 tile plant. We want a 2 tile plant, preferably. That could go there. Yeah, because if we put a 3 tile plant in, it's going to cover the whatever. I have an idea. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take the bottom of this plant. Sometimes you just got to get creative. We're going to put the top of that plant on the buildings layer, and then we're going to put the top of my cabinet on the front layer. So now it looks like it's got a trellis behind going up the wall, and the plant is sitting on the cabinet, as opposed to hanging from the doors of the cabinet. Sometimes you just have to think a little bit creatively. So the other thing I want to make sure I do is I want to make sure I get some windows in here. Now the windows I'm going to be turning into day-night tiles. And so the thing about those is anything you turn into a day-night tile has to be on one of the original level layers. So it's got to be on your buildings layer, your front layer, your back layer, something with that naming scheme. You can't put it on like the back two. It has to be on the buildings or the front. So I am going to put these on the buildings layer. And they'll go right up there, up top. Let some light in. Now I'm debating if I want to make this just a little bit smaller. Because those don't quite... Yeah. So what I'm going to now do is I'm going to go over here. I'm going to click on back. I'm going to hold shift. I'm going to highlight everything. I'm going to go over here, Control C, and then Control V, and that gives me everything on the layer now becomes a stamp. And it's when I click, it's going to override. So now when I take my eraser key, because everything right there is highlighted, it's erasing everything. Now I do want to be a little careful because I don't want to accidentally erase something that I need down. So now I'm going to go back to my buildings layer and just adjust it. And you noticed it's got these all highlighted there. It's because I've got the buildings key and it's showing me in the stamp tool which things I had selected that match that buildings key. So you just click again and it goes back to normal. And then that was on front. There we go. I like that a little better spacing wise. Because I'm also reminding myself that trailers have very specific space requirements. So like it doesn't have to be perfect, but for my own sanity, I like things to be a little bit realistic. I'm also going to go back to the back and I'm going to put some tiles down for the kitchen area. I'm going to put that just on the bit that would slide. And then I'm going to do the same with the rug. Just on the bit that would slide. And then I want, this is going to be like a dining area. And the thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to go in here. And I'm going to add these tiles to have the shadow. So that it's a little bit more obvious that those slide in. The other thought I had, yeah, we'll do it that way, is these tiles that have the border. There they are. And then it kind of looks like the what is the word I'm looking for? The bumper between the carpet and the tile. Okay. So now I want this whole section there, buildings. And that becomes a front layer so that when the farmer walks behind it, that it'll show up over the top of the farmer. And I want a counter right here because we're going to put a TV on a counter here. So I have somewhere. I have seen a table. Might have been an interior too. That was uniquely placed. Oh, here we go. Because it's kind of the color I based those counters off when I milled it. So we're going to go, I'm going to put this on the buildings layer. So you see it kind of shows through just a little bit peeking out. And then I have a TV here that I kind of sort of made. But you can see when I clicked on it and left it on buildings, that happens. So I'm going to put it on front. But now our front bit is gone. So this is where always front becomes useful because it's going to do the same thing as what we want the walls to do, which is stay on top of everything. But it's also going to layer it on top of our front layer. So now we have our TV there. And there's a little dinette. And we have this here. I'm debating changing the floor again. I'm looking at my spacing and how my bump outs work. Yeah, I'm going to change my flooring again. Bear with me. It's going to change a couple times. And this is part of the map making process as you look at something and go, oh, it's not quite what I want it to be. And that is perfectly fine. So now it's just the kitchen islands and things that slide in. And I want... Oh, I'm on the always front layer. This is why... Okay. This is why I need to remember to lock my layers so that I don't do things like that. So we're going to lock everything else. Now I know I'm on the back layer and only on the back layer. So we're going to have the bump out Here we go. And that's going to slide down over the tile and over the carpet instead of the other way around. Okay, and I want back to my town interior where we had that border on the flooring. Back. There we go. Now it kind of looks like those will slide in over. Yeah, I like that. And of course we need some photos on the walls here. Sports team pennant. I bet you at least one person in this house likes a sports team, so we're going to do that. Lock that. And I'm going to go ahead and save my work. So now we can move into the next sections of our map. I know that this lower section here is going to be pretty much straight across. So I'm just going to go ahead and put that front line in there. And then right here is going to be our door into the trailer. So the next bit is that the front of the trailer is going to curve slightly. Go to our always front. Unlock that. This bit can go on the buildings layer. And then we're going to put on the buildings layer, we're going to put a bit of side there. And that way we have that little bit of a curve. Put this on always front 1, 2. Erase that. I'm going to go to buildings because I want to make sure these corners actually end up on the buildings layer so that nobody accidentally walks out into the void. And then I can erase that little bit. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my wall. And then put that on the back behind the bed. Now the one thing I did not do is I did not make an angled wall. So I'm going to go up back to our original towns section. I'm going to look at the walls that are already angled. And I'm going to pick a new little wallpaper for the bedroom. We have the wood. We have that. I'm also going to look at in town too, because there's some angled walls here. Oh, there's a solution. Okay. Is that mostly the same color? It is. Close enough. Put that on back too. And this bit on buildings. Yep, that is close enough. That'll work. And that will let them go through the bed because this lower tile right there is on back too. And then I can go back to my cottage and take just the top of the polka dot paper and put that on the back. And now it looks like we have the angled wall. So sometimes you just have to be a little bit creative. Go back to our town interior and find our windows. And I'm going to use this one. We're going to give them a nice big window. Oh no, I don't want that on back too anyway. What did I say about day and night tiles? They have to be on a layer that is labeled buildings. There we go. Or not the layer itself doesn't have to be named buildings, but the tiles need to be on a layer that has one of the base names on them. Let's add a picture. I think there were some pictures that were angled, but they may be in town interior too. And there we go. So now the next little bit I wanted to add was the bathroom. Oh, and sorry, I'm thinking about space here. So I'm going to do this based on this door here. Need to do our wall. Okay. Go to buildings. 2, 3, 1. So that's going to be our back wall there. Which is then going to become that. And here it is. Like I knew I had put those corners in there. So then we need a very itty bitty tiny shower shell. Where did I lock that? There we go. Look. Back 2, put the drain in. Like I said, it's going to be a very itty bitty tiny little shower cell. Because if you've ever been in a camper, the very itty bitty tiny bathroom is a thing. This is going to be always front. Oh, I need to do that opposite. Okay. And we want okay. And back. There we go. Now it's done in tile. I'm also going to get a little bit sneaky here because most camper fifth wheel bedrooms are lifted a little bit. I'm going to find this set of stairs. I'm going to go up here to this little arrow here where it says right rotate, where it shows the triangles. I'm going to click that. I'm going to put that right here on the back layer. So now you're going up a set of stairs to get to the bathroom, not to the bathroom, the bedroom. And now I'm going to go in, I'm going to put carpet down in the bedroom. So that will be that there. And the next thing we want to do is we want to do the doors. So the doors are a little tricky. You have to do some coding with the doors, but you want to lay the foundation of the door first. So you want to go over into your town interior base map. This is up at the top. Your very bottom of the door is going to go on the buildings layer. You're going to stick that right there. And then the top of the door is going to go on your front layer. And then we'll do some coding in there, and that will open and close. So that is how you make a map in Tiled. In our next video, I will go over the tiled data and the coding you do for windows and doors and warps and things. But I hope having the ability to watch a map be built was found helpful. And until the next time, I hope you all have a wonderful day.